We are back with Eliyahu Berkowitz. Actually, the title on your book is Adam, but you say you like to go by Eliyahu.
That's correct.
And the book is The Hope Merchant. This has been out for how long?
I think almost 4 years.
Okay.
Almost 4 years.
Okay. This is your first published fiction.
That's correct. Right? It's my first published, but it's not the first book I wrote, but it is the first one that got published.
Okay. Well, I've got a number of questions for you. By the way, before we get started, I really, really liked this book. And it caught me and it hit me in some ways that I wasn't expecting. When this book starts out, I mean, you've got a couple of characters. You've got Jack and Hannah, and you've got
Big Brad.
Huh? Oh, you've got Big Brad.
Big Brad.
And you've painted a life of this hard-charging lawyer and put him in an extremely difficult and delicate situation based on some choices that he's made as well as some choices that his boss has made, and intercept him, bring him out to nature. We were talking about nature in the last segment.
And cows.
And introduce him to a number of characters, father and mother at the farm. He meets a girl named Hannah. And you've put together a meaning of life, a story, a romance. You've got... and somehow you managed to work in, and I don't know how you write this. You journaled as if you were a young girl, looking for, trying to find herself. And all of this is in the first chapter.
Yeah, it moves. It moves a lot.
So when I started reading the book, I saw a story moving, and it was very, very interesting. But pretty soon, in the book, we find ourselves drawn to a certain character in the book. In this case, it's a young boy named Theo.
Yes.
So, tell me about this. Your writing style. I mean, you've got a lot of different things going on in this book. And I don't know. Just tell me about some of the characters that where they may have come out of your heart and so forth.
Well, first of all, writing is not such a conscious process for me. It's a lot of channeling. Especially when it's working, it's channeling. When it's good, it's channeling. The stories come through me. They don't come from me. I may see them through my personal life and a lens. I think maybe I come as a specific kind of antenna to attract these stories, but they certainly don't come from me. So in essence, my experience of the book and your experience of the book are equally valid. So I'm fascinated by what you were saying. I'm like, wow, it sounds like a good book.
There's a lot of stories where people try to find themselves, and their situation. They get interrupted, and they go out to a different place, and then they meet people they never thought they'd meet, and then their life is changed and so forth. But yet, that is just a setup for where this book takes you, which is there's a connecting point between many of these various stories.
Sure. And
tell us about what is that connecting point.
Well,
who is the connecting point?
The connecting point is Theo. Theo, on a certain level, is very much, we have a tradition in Judaism of Elijah the prophet, Eliyahu Navi, who is eternal, and he goes through and he shows up, first of all, at every bris, at every circumcision, but also I think he comes to answer the most compelling questions. And I think Theo is like a little bit of spice.
Yes.
He's not a major. He doesn't appear as a major character in most of the stories, but his influence is more like in an indirect manner. It was interesting. I mean, I believe in magic. Magic is miracles, but I believe unlike Harry Potter, I believe the magic doesn't come to solve your problem. It brings a message. The word nes in Hebrew means miracle, but it actually means a banner. It means look over here. And I think that's what Theo is doing. Theo comes into a story which should have gone in a different direction. And he says, wait a second. Take a look at this instead. You have Jack, and he thinks his problem is that he's running from the law because he, as a lawyer, he did something unethical. And Theo is like, no. Take a look at something else.
Yes.
You have a different issue that you have to cope with.
Yes. So you weave together a number of interesting stories through the character Theo, and I won't explain to people exactly how that works because you got to read it and kind of see how it fits. But one of the common themes is you were helping these characters explore to finding out what is really important in life.
Yes.
And the other thing is you help them find an unexpected soulmate. Now, where does that come from? Are you married?
I am married. It was I think the reason why that specifically is a recurring theme is because it was a very difficult fixing that I have to do in my life. I think a lot of life is fixing something. I read a Torah once, the Netivot Olam, who said that when you get up to heaven, God isn't going to ask you how many mitzvahs you did. God's going to ask you, that thing I sent you down, did you fix it? And I think for me that fixing was to connect, to be a husband, to be a father. And so that comes through in the book, that a lot of the fixings are connecting. And I think connecting is, and yes. I actually think that's a big. It's funny that we live in a time, and everyone knows it, that we live in. And this is so cliche, but it's so true. We live in a time when everyone's always on a cell phone, always on the internet. Yeah. Everyone's always connecting, but we don't know how to have conversations.
Right.
You have. I'm amazed. You have a gazillion and one dating sites.
Yeah.
And people are desperately searching for their soulmates.
Yes. But there's something different about what you did. And I'm wondering if where this comes from. Is it more personal? Does it come from your Jewish outlook? It's this. These characters. Let me first contrast it. In America, the connecting thing, the soulmate thing, is focused around trying to find that person that will complete you, or that will help you become everything that you could be. But in these stories, very much intertwined in these romance encounters, is something about children. It comes up even before the marriage. So, is that personal, or is that part of the Jewish flavor, which is finding its way out into the story?
It might actually be you. That might be what you took away from it inside.
Oh no, he's reading me. He's reading
which is great. I mean, every time someone comes up to me and says, "I read the book," I'm like, "Oh, what book did you read?" I have no idea what I wrote. Tell me what you read. I've heard other people say something similar to that. So the words are definitely there. If you took it away, that's definitely a personal experience.
Well, is that your I mean, when you did get married, did you speak about children beforehand, or is it just sort of assumed?
It was a given. It was a given.
Okay.
I mean, it kind of amazes me. I'm getting old. I still wait for my mom to lay out my clothes in the morning and tell me to go to school. But
we all wish we could have a little bit of that.
But inside each person is this little child going, "Am I doing it right? This life thing is it?" But when my mother comes to visit and we talk about it, and she fills me in on all the people I used to know in the States. I mean, I haven't been in the States since 1991. People I grew up with, and a few of the people I grew up with, they don't have children, and it's like for me that's the moon, like living on the moon. I don't understand that.
Yes.
I don't want to judge it. God forbid. I don't want to judge anyone for that. It's so incredibly alien to me personally that if I wrote a book, I could not write a book from the perspective of someone who does not want to have children. That's just too alien for me.
And of course, I mean, the Jewish culture does highly value children. The book takes place in upstate New York, New York City, upstate New York, and some New Jersey.
Story, yeah.
But there are some overt Jewish concepts that are brought in. I think there was a brit, circumcision or something.
Few.
No, it was the wedding.
There were actually very few. Oh, yeah. You caught that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the Jewish wedding was one. Yeah.
It wasn't supposed to be a Jewish wedding.
One of the characters confessed to being Jewish. He wasn't practicing at the time.
Really?
I think that was Jack.
Really?
I think so.
Really? Okay. Find that. Tell me about that. I didn't know.
Yeah.
There was the chapter in the insane asylum.
Yes.
And that actually, I did something very interesting with a classic Jewish concept of the 36, the hidden 36 righteous people.
Yes.
I of course, it of course came out differently.
And for Christians who think the Kabbalah idea of 36 righteous people is so strange, go look at Revelation and look at the 144,000 that haven't been stained by sin. So there's definitely some tie in there.
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean, like I had the 36 hidden, and they weren't all Jewish, but it was a Jewish concept, and also the way it came out, and the concept of putting God on trial. It comes from a story in the Holocaust, but it came out a little bit differently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean that's and it's a concept I very much connect to. Like when the way my version of prayer is that God said, for example, God said that this person is going to be sick and die, and it is my requirement as a Jew. I am required as a Jew to not be apathetic. I am required to scream out and say, God, you are right, but you got to change this. From your perspective, this is correct. But you have required me to be a man, and as a man, I see this as wrong. And you've got to fix it, and you've got to heal him. So that's I think, where that chapter came from.
That was one of the toughest parts of the book. But it's actually helpful to know. I didn't know that I was getting that from a Jewish stamp. I didn't realize I was learning that.
It might not be the majority opinion. It probably is not. So yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that, because the different sections of the book are different writing styles, different thematically, different. It's I call it an omnibus, which is it's a collection of short stories with a connecting central theme.
Yes.
And different people connect to different sections differently.
I want to tell you how I think our viewers ought to read this book when they buy a copy, how they ought to read it. But before I do that, I just want to touch on one more thing about the story. And I think I know your answer now because of some of your other, but we'll see. We'll see if I know what you're going to say. I was especially attracted to Theo for a reason that I want to hear if you did this on purpose. Theo, for Christians, embodies something that is very special. It's very dear to us. The idea of righteous actions, or let me go ahead all the way and say sort of, the Messiah, looking for how to change the world, and doing it in a rather secretive way, not so overt. Now, it isn't that Theo wasn't on the front page of the newspaper. He would work quietly in one story at a time. The different stories don't necessarily connect. Sometimes they connect, sometimes they don't. But there was something very compelling about Theo because of his capabilities. They were beyond human, and so I felt like there was some kind of connection to sort of a Messiah thing. Because he was sort of beyond human. He was working very quietly, and I don't mean Messiah as in the Jewish concept. I mean Messiah from the Christian standpoint. So it drew me in. Had you thought of that?